Khazarian mafia make final push for fake Armageddon with iron attack on Saudi Arabia. The Khazarian mafia, facing the imminent bankruptcy of their Washington, D.C. corporation, staged an attack on Saudi Arabia's oil productions in a desperate Hail Mary bid to start their long-planned World War III, multiple sources agree. The attack has twofold purpose: prevent the U.S. bankruptcy by jacking up oil prices and forcing countries like China to buy U.S. oil, and con the Iranian and U.S. militaries into starting World War III, bring on Armageddon, and pave the way for Jared Kushner to be Messiah. The first thing you need to understand is that Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and U.S. President Donald Trump are both employees of the Rothschild satanic Red Shield family. Those of you who are still drinking corporate media Kool-Aid, please do some independent fact-checking. Lots of you know it is a matter of public record that each time Donald Trump went bankrupt as a businessman, he was bought out by Rothschild. However, did you know that Ayatollah Khamenei, the leader of the Iranian Revolution, was actually of British Indian heritage and a son of a British petroleum employee? The Rothschild-owned BP was then known as Anglo-Iranian Oil. Here's what an Iranian descendant has to say about Khomeiни's successor. All Iranians know and hate Ali Rothschild. So now we have Rothschild slave President Trump tweeting, Saudi Arabia oil supply was attacked. There's reason to believe that we know the culprit, and locked and loaded depending on verifications. Then we have a Rothschild slave Iranian leader Khamenei ordering his Republic Guard commander Amir Ali Hazizadeh to say Iran was ready for a full-fledged war and threatened that Americans' military bases and aircraft carriers, which are stationed up to 1,243 miles around Iran, were within the range of Iranian missiles. It also looks like both Iranian and U.S. top leaders are campaigning for re-election on September 17 for mass murdering war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu before the Jewish people wake up and put him in jail where he belongs. Many in the U.S. military intelligence community still cling to the hope that Trump is just going along with the genius as part of an elaborate ruse designed to remove them from control of the U.S. Pentagon sources say Trump set up Bibi Netanyahu for defeat with a mutual defense treaty. The sources say the controversial mutual defense treaty with Israel is opposed by Israeli Defense Forces and the U.S. Department of Defense, and may never ratified by the Senate, since even the UN Law Treaty of the Sea couldn't be ratified because it takes only 34 senators to block. Furthermore, even if ratified, Israel cannot cash a check because the U.S. military will not shed any blood for Xenius when it's surrounded by $400 underwater nuke and advanced missiles and drones from Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah, the sources say. Israeli Crime Ministry Netanyahu visited Russia on behalf of his Rothschild master last week in the hope of getting their support for direct Israeli attacks on Iran. Instead, Russian President Vladimir Putin read him the real act and threatened to shoot down any attacking Israeli aircraft, the Pentagon sources say. Instead, Wright Golden Dove of Veterans Today, who has extensive U.S. Air Force contacts, it was actually the Israelis who attacked Saudi Arabia and tried to blame it on Iran. Despite all this, some of our Pentagon sources still apparently cling to the hope that Trump is secretly working against the Xenius, even as he pretends to go along with everything they want. They say Trump sent an ominous warning to Israel by firing John Bolton the day before 11 September and exposed Israeli spying on the White House and Congress. Trump's public denial of Israeli spying was just a cover, the sources seem to believe. In any case, the Pentagon sources say the firing of Bolton and the Houthi victory over Saudi Arabia should make a meeting between Trump and Iranian President Hassan Rouhani at the UN General Assembly meeting opening on September 17 productive. Trump may be forced to leave Iran sanctions with Saudi oil offline to get a summit with Khamenei, the source adds. Also, Israeli public leader Mohammed bin Salman may be deposed, as Saudis are defeated with the attack on oil facilities near Riyadh, the source says. This should cure the Aramco IPO by exposing Patriot air defense missile as useless, dealing a major blow to Raytheon and military-industrial complex, he adds. In any case, the attack, apparently widely exaggerated on Saudi oil facilities, is proving short-term benefits to the U.S. Trump tweeted, "I have authorized the release of oil from the strategic petroleum reserves, if needed, in a to-be-determined amount sufficient to keep the markets well supplied." In any case, the attack, apparently widely exaggerated on Saudi oil facilities, is proving short-term benefits to the U.S. corporate government. Trump tweeted, "I have authorized the release of oil from the strategic petroleum reserves, if needed, in a to-be-determined amount sufficient to keep the market well supplied. I've also informed all appropriate agencies to expedite approvals of the oil pipelines currently in the permitting process in Texas and various other states." Translations: "We are going to avoid bankruptcy on September 30 by selling more oil." In a sign this move was planned in advance, Asian Secret Society and CSIS sources tell us that former Japanese Prime Minister Junichiro Koizumi and Yasuhiro Nakasone were arrested, as reported September 2nd, by agents working for Rothschild servant Michael Greenberg. They were released after promising to lobby against nuclear energy in order to force Japan to buy more oil from the U.S. corporations, the sources say. These efforts to stave off bankruptcy come as the British Commonwealth, the Chinese, the Russians, and most of the rest of the world are trying to convince the U.S. military-industrial complex to allow the U.S. corporate government to go bankrupt. The U.S. corporation, which took over from the Republic of the United States of America in 1871, has been a disaster for American people, especially in recent years. Real living standards of 90% of Americans have been going down since 1972. The U.S. has the highest prison incarceration rate in the world. Medical expenses are the highest in the world, even as lifespan dropped. Education standards are dismal. The Zionist fanatics control a Congress that 90% of Americans do not support. The plan being discussed is to replace the U.S. cooperation with the Democratic United States of North America. In this plan, the never-defeated elite Canadian Armed Force would merge with the U.S. military. Meanwhile, Americans would get good government, better health care, higher living standard, lower crime rates, etc. This plan does not involve putting Americans under the control of Castro's son and probable brother murdering Justin Trudeau, MI6 sources promise. For those who think Trump is still their savior, think about the following. There are now over 120,000 sealed indictments, but Trump is preventing them from being acted upon. The 11 September truth has not been revealed as he promised. Cronin has been shut down, and Trump's son-in-law is Jared, 666 Fifth Avenue, Cushard. Pentagon sources add that Trump is doing everything in his power to stop military tribunals and cover up the Jeffrey Epstein revelation. We really hope Trump is just playing along with the genius as many believe, but so far his actions show otherwise. Please pull the plug and save America from crazy messianic fanatics who have seized power. In any case, even if the U.S. corporate government managed to keep the can down the road a bit further, it is mathematically doomed. Legendary investor Jim Rogers, speaking last week at the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan, predicts that the current financial system will collapse in the next 2 or 3 years, and the U.S. Federal Reserve Board will vanish. Rogers, like most veteran financiers, knows the current system based on negative interest rates and pumping money into zombie corporations is doomed. As the Bank of America points out, U.S. financial assets are now worth over 5 times GDP. In other words, access would have to fall 80% in value in order to match the real economy. No wonder Rogers, who was born in 1942, expected the worst bear market in my lifetime. If the US military-industrial complex does not go along with an orderly Chapter 11 bankruptcy and reboot of the US government, there will be chaos. Many governments are going to collapse and disappear, Rogers predicts. Instead of anarchy, wouldn't it be better to remove the word financial system, starting with a jubilee and a multi-trillion-dollar campaign to end poverty and stop environmental destruction? The Chinese, the British Commonwealth, the Russian, the Vatican, and many others support this plan. It's only the fanatical, messianic, and delusional Zionists who are doing everything they can to prevent this from happening. They still want to kill 90% of us and enslave the rest. The US military should arrest Jared Kushner and put him into observations. I guarantee it would not be long before he shows signs of fanatic possessions. They should also read the real act of Trump. On the final note, our Russian sources say they are checking on why they sent us a picture of US actress Jeanette Lane as Melania Trump's grandmother, but they insist she was Senior Lieutenant Olga Olive of the Soviet Army.